right now.
Did you have a question for the panel today?
Hey everybody, welcome to the 2017 Flight Sim Web Conference hosted by OVPA. My name is Dave Hodges, and well, we're real happy to have you guys with us today, but unfortunately we are having some just terrible technical issues, and that has affected all of our video playback for today. It's not due to anything on this end or any of our developers' ends. It's due to a server that we rent that allows us to play the video back and allow our developers to actually play it back and control it for you. And unfortunately, I'm the only one that seems to be able to log in today, even though we tested it for the last 3 days. Today, it decides not to work. So we're going to reschedule the web conference, but before we do that, we were all talking, and we decided that it'd be a good idea to talk about the focus of the web conference with you, to at least give you something. But before I do that, let me tell you what you missed on the video. Again, we're going to show this to you just as soon as we can verify that the server is working as it needs to be. We're going to show you a more than a sneak peek at the Aerosoft A330, and we're going to show you all the systems and the aircraft operating, and I have to say that I'm even surprised at how far along that aircraft really is. We're going to show you the Leonardo Mad Dog X, and Grant and I have been flying the Mad Dog X now for several months, and we're long-time Mad Dog lovers. We have about 4,000 hours each shared cockpit and flying the Mad Dog, and then hours on top of that. So we're real big Mad Dog fans. And then we are going to show you the Majestic Dash 8 training version. And the Mad Dog and the Dash 8 are just, they're at the extreme end of flight simulation. There is the realism of these aircraft is just unmatched. So they're really in a class of their own, and I feel bad that we're not able to show you that video today. The focus of this year's web conference is shared cockpit, and many of you may not be aware of what shared cockpit is, and some of you who are thinking, well, that's not for me. And if I can, obviously looking at me, I'm an older guy. I'm 55 years of age, and I got my start in flight sim just like everybody does, just me and my computer. And if I was in flight sim just doing commercial flight sim stuff, you probably never would have gotten me interested in shared cockpit, to be honest with you. But I had an experience back in the mid-90s that changed my outlook on everything as far as flight sim is concerned. And I just want to share that with you briefly. Back in, I don't remember if it was 1994 or 1996, Electronic Arts, along with a team of programmers, pumped out 2 aircraft, 2 full flight sims. They were combat flight sims. Some of you guys will recognize the names. It's Jane's F-15 and then Jane's FA-18 simulator. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of the F-15. I'm a Navy guy. I'm retired Navy. And when the F-18 came out, I was pretty enthused. One of the features that aircraft had, or that simulator had, was the ability to fly online and fly strike missions with up to 8 different people. And I found, after a couple of years, I found a couple of groups of older guys that were doing just that. And they were really into it. They would plan these missions like we would do in the military. And the friendships that grew out of that, first of all, the flying was unbelievable. It was just incredible flying with other people and instead of AI traffic, and communicating with them in real time. And our friendship started with Jane's F-18, or started with flight simulation, but they grew outside of that, and I'm still friends with many of those people today. Well, when I got back into flying Microsoft Flight Simulator, I came across the Leonardo Mad Dog, and for those of you who are not familiar with the Leonardo Mad Dog, it was first created around 2000, or thought of, conceptualized, if you will, back in around the year 2000. And work in earnest started, and I want to ask Matthias Koch from Aerosoft to jump in here, because he was the original program manager for that aircraft. Matthias, it was about 2002 when the Mad Dog, they first started working in earnest on that project?
That's a seriously long time ago. I think we started in 2000.
Yep. And so the aircraft was released for FS 2004, or what we know as FS 9. And when FSX came out, it was updated, or really ported over. When you port software over, it means it's not made for that sim, but it's working in the sim. That's the easiest way I know to explain it. It was ported over to FSX. And so when I came across this aircraft, I found that it was shared cockpit capable. And this guy, all the way over your screens, the opposite end from me, is Grant Sprosen. And I came across Grant Sprosen and had a friend of mine, Mark Grant, who is the one that's taking questions right now on our Discord channel. I got a hold of these 2 guys, and we started flying the wings off the Mad Dog in shared cockpit. Now, it's one thing, I tell you right away, it's one thing to fly shared cockpit with people that you just meet. And it's nice and it's fun and all that. But it's an entirely different thing to fly shared cockpit with a friend who enjoys flight simulation as much as you do. I'm telling you, since 2008, I've been flying shared cockpit continually, and I have got so many memorable experiences that I could tell you, that I could share with you like they'd happened yesterday. And it's just amazing. So in 2008, found the shared cockpit. I got real excited about it, and I started telling everybody that I could in flight sim about shared cockpit, because not very many people at all knew about it. And then I started working or talking with developers, and I got a hold of this guy, Oleksiy Frolov. Nobody ever heard of this guy. He's working on some little turboprop aircraft, and I don't know why he ever listened to me. But we started talking about shared cockpit, and he said, I've got an instructor panel. I think it'll help. The software's already there. I think we can make this work. And then, so Oleksiy, we got shared cockpit working in that Dash 8, didn't we?
Yeah, that's actually, it's been there for a very long time. And at some point in time, we didn't even know if it would ever release to the public. Because that was a time when, there was no shared cockpit yet.
Right.
And no, but we were not the first one. I think the Mad Dog beat us to the to the shared cockpit market.
Yeah.
But yes, that's started, and we thought, wow, this is an amazing thing, which we could actually fly the same aircraft with two pilots over the network. At that time, it only worked in the intranet. It couldn't go through the internet connection. So there's some modification had to be done, and the synchronization issues. The shared cockpit is an extremely demanding endeavor, and a lot of things has to be considered for the smooth performance. Because there's something happened on the other side that has to be synchronized, and if the process, if the updates are not in sync and there's delay, it's immediately noticeable. And if the data doesn't come back, then immediately, if you lose a few clicks and you're on a system like a flight management computer, then basically you lose it, and you can just keep doing, and it's not synchronized anymore. So it's not an easy thing to do, shared cockpit. But definitely, the Dave was one of the driving forces behind it, I would say, and he did an incredible job in testing what we were developing shared cockpit was before we released it for the first time. So yes, and it is certainly another edge of the flight simulator which adds a lot to the realism. I would say it is another 50% of it which is missing if you don't do the shared cockpit.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And you know, so and I worked with some other developers, and shared cockpit didn't come through, not yet anyway. And we're still talking and working with a couple of aircraft developers to help bring them into the shared cockpit world. But I got an email from this guy, Joshua. I never heard of this guy before, and he said, "Hey, I understand you know a little bit about shared cockpit, and I was wondering if you'd like to help us with our project." I said, "Well, yeah, sure. What project is that?" It turned out it was the Aerosoft Airbus, and so my friend Grant and I worked with Joshua for I don't know, about 4 or 5 months, and the aircraft was ready for release, and shared cockpit was working very well, and now I was not a driving force at all with the Aerosoft connected flight deck, is what Aerosoft calls it, and I really don't know whose idea that was to bring that about, but I do know that Matthias is a staunch supporter of shared cockpit, and
Absolutely.
yeah, Matthias, whose idea was that?
Joshua made it. He started with it on his own. I didn't know anything about it at first. Complete surprise. And when he showed it to us, it was basically working.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure that you knew about it before I knew about it. That's not a good thing to admit as a project manager, by the way.
I wouldn't think so, but it worked, and that was great. Well, it's wonderful to have innovative people, and everybody that I have met in the shared cockpit community, whether they're a developer or they're a flight simmer, they're innovative. They're thinking ahead. They're ahead of the curve. And let me talk to you about ahead of the curve. So Leonardo, the Leonardo Mad Dog, arguably one of the best aircraft ever developed for desktop flight simulation. And we're going to have it again in P3D, right? So Mad Dog X, we're working on it now. David Maris, who is a devoted and heavy-duty flight sim guy, by the way. I did not know that until recently. But David is the owner of of Leonardo, unless Alexei wants to get in there and sell it to him. Anyway, David had a lot of requests for the Mad Dog in P3D, and there were a lot of us Mad Dog lovers who had moved on to P3D, and we were, well, more than disheartened that we weren't going to be able to fly the Mad Dog in a 64-bit sim. I personally kept FSX installed on my computer just to fly the Mad Dog. So David acquiesced, didn't, and he is working hard right now on getting that Mad Dog to the point of release, and we're enjoying flying the aircraft right now. I can tell you, it's just tremendous. It really is. Um, so anyway, I think that's going to wrap up shared cockpit talk, unless any of our panel has anything else they want to say about it. Grant?
I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, when we came away from FSX and we couldn't take the Mad Dog along with us, that was it was quite disappointing at the time, because same as you, like, the only reason I kept FSX installed was for two particular aircraft, one being the Mad Dog with the shared cockpit capability. So when we got the news through that they were bringing this onto the 64-bit platform, it was just some great news to bring along, because like I say, I think I originally came onto FSX for the Mad Dog is when I first met yourself. So we flew that for must be 8 or 10 years, if not more, and obviously now we can continue that on. It's a great piece of news for us, and obviously with the advances coming through with Aerosoft, Majestic, and other developers coming along as well, it's just been fantastic.
Yeah. Hey, I just thought of something. Back when Grant and I first started flying shared cockpit together, and anybody who has read the manuals that I've written for shared cockpit will already know this. If you haven't read those manuals, you can find them on the Aerosoft Connected Flight Deck forum and in the AvSim Shared Cockpit forum. Just look for the OVPA manuals. Grant and I started flying, I think it was about maybe after 3 months. Grant's computer transferred a piece of malware to my computer during a shared cockpit flight, and we know that it occurred during the shared cockpit flight. And at that point, we sat down and outlined a computer security policy, had it vetted from somebody that I was working with at the Department of Defense. And since we put that computer security policy in place, no OVPA member has had any malware, let alone transferred it to somebody else. So if you're going to connect your computer to somebody else's computer, it's something you need to be concerned about, because generally speaking, that's one of the most riskiest things you can do. Now, especially if it's somebody you don't know, at all, somebody you just met. Now, I'm big on computer security, and I run a full computer security suite, and it does not impact my computer performance or my performance of my flight simulator in any way, shape, or form. And the security suite that I run is from Norton's, which is long rumored to be a performance killer on computers, and it isn't, and it doesn't have to be. Again, it's how you set it up. I gave some in one of the guides that I wrote, I provided settings for Norton's, but those same settings could be applied to any security suite that you may get. So computer security is important, and I'm a former computer engineer, so I'm telling you straight out, it's important. And if anybody tries to tell you that it's not, you ought to, I don't know, at least look the other way. Now, so Matthias and I have been talking, and I've been talking with Hans Hartman and a couple other guys at Aerosoft that write code, and because of course I'm concerned about shared cockpit and computer security. And Matthias and I had a great conversation just the other day about something new that's coming from Aerosoft, something that I'm excited about, and I want Matthias to explain what that is.
Sure. If you start slide number 1.
Sure, I'd be happy to. 1 second. I gotta get over there.
Just tell me when it's up, because I can't see it here.
Okay. 1 second here. I just have to find it. These slides, we got these
Basically,
slides at the very last minute, so bear with me on this. Here we go. That's slide number 1.
Okay. Basically, the issue with the Airbus we had is that for a huge amount of people, it is a major bother to connect two computers directly to each other. You're dealing with firewalls, you're dealing with ports you have to open in a router. We wanted to get rid of that whole thing. And we looked at a lot of the technology. Slide number 2, Dave, please.
Yep, sure, go ahead.
What we decided that the only way to do it was to use a server. That way the two computers are never connected to each other. They only talk to the server exactly the same way that you browse the internet. so the captain computer talks to the server, and the server sends all the information to the first officer's computer, and of course the other way. The other way back. Of course, that also makes it possible to send the stream to other computers. We can have, in principle, an unlimited amount of people in the connected flight deck. We've tested it now with 16 observers, and because they don't interact with the cockpit, they only get the stream from the cockpit. They can't send anything back. It doesn't affect the server at all. It's only one stream that goes out, and it still is the observer. He sees the whole thing in his own flight sim. It is not a video. It's not Twitch or something like that. You can interact with the cockpit. You can look wherever you want to look. Slide number 3, Dave.
Oh, I didn't have a slide 3. I'm sorry. I only had the slide 2.
And not 4 and 5?
No 4 and 5. I am so sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I'm going to have to improvise a little bit here. Basically, the captain has full control of the whole thing. He decides who can enter the flight deck and who can do what. He can decide if there are observers in the cockpit or it's a complete closed session. We wanted to keep things completely safe, so all the communication is encrypted and nothing is stored on the server. You can ask the server to store the complete flight with all the actions that the captain and the first officer does. So you can replay the whole flight as well.
You know, I one of the things too, you know, being very security conscious. One of the, I think the most important part of the upcoming Aerosoft connected flight deck is there is no throughput directly from one computer to the other. And if there is if there is no throughput, then you have just alleviated the things that concern me as a computer engineer. So the only possible entry point vector is if somebody was to hack the server. But let me tell you, if that happened, they're not going to be interested in what data is being sent to you know, for connected flight deck to another computer. You know, they've got more nefarious things in mind. So that being said, and I know that Aerosoft maintains computer security on their servers as well, and server-based computer security software is far better than what we run on our PCs. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. It is completely as safe or unsafe as browsing the internet is.
Yeah, well, I would say safer because you're not.
I think so too, because we maintain our servers better than a lot of the other servers that are handled.
Sure, but I mean, it's also safer just because you're not going to a variety of different websites. You're going to one source. It's a known source. You know the source is maintained as a secure source. Sure, anything can get hacked, but you know what? People have a lot better things to do than to hack an Aerosoft server. You know, again, unless maybe, you know, they had a beef with them or something. I mean, I don't know, but it would have to be very deliberate, and they'd have to go through a heck of a lot in order to do it. I'm not concerned. I'm more concerned about the websites that I go to on a daily basis. So, again, you remove the attack vector. Because the main, by the way, we kind of talked around it. I'm just going to be specific. The main security risk is connecting your computer to the computer of somebody else. That's a direct connection. that is a huge and terrible security risk. For instance, to get away with or to do away with that security risk, OVPA members not only subscribe to a computer security policy, we don't connect our computers to anybody except other OVPA members, because and so everybody's agreed to the security policy. We all do some weekly scans, and we share those scans with one another, and we don't connect our computers to other people outside our group. So what we have created is a safe zone, if you will, of people to fly with. Now, on top of that, earlier I talked about flying with friends, and you know, the guys at OVPA are some of the best people I've ever known. They're very good people. It's just a pleasure to fly with them. Even when I fly in single cockpit, I kind of look around at different flights, and I'm like, well, I wish Mark was online or Grant was online, or, you know, I mean, because I like to fly even single cockpit. We do flights together. So again, connecting your computer to that of somebody else is a very risky endeavor, and you want to make sure that your computer security is intact, and that the other person's is as well. You can read more about that in the guides that I wrote, but with what Aerosoft has in mind, and I'm looking, Matthias, I'm looking forward so much to testing this. I think, you know, removing that attack vector is going to make shared cockpit something that everybody can do.
And the thing that I really love the most is that people can just join you in the cockpit, because it is possible to go to our website, see all the flights that are going on, and you simply start your own flight sim, go to the website, click on a button, and you're an observer in that cockpit. You're inside that same cockpit.
You know, Matthias, there's a lot of aircraft out there that would be great to have shared cockpit.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm not going to name any names, but we're talking to 4 development teams who are very interested in the technology. I do think that next year we will see a lot of aircraft using some kind of shared cockpit.
Sure. Well, I tell you, if it works as we think it's going to work, then I'm going to push our friend Alexei to at least make that kind of, you know, make connected flight deck another option for that Dash 8, because you know, being able to not be concerned with computer security is just going to open the door, I think, to many more people flying the Dash. Alexei, what do you think?
I think this is a tremendous idea, and from the architecture point of view, I don't think this that would require a major rework of the existing shared cockpit technology, because as long as the aircraft, the add-on, can send the data to another computer, it can as well send the data to the server, which will channel it further to another computer. So there are probably some logical issues like login, logout to be solved, and so the wrong people don't come to the server, they must be registered. But apart of that, technically, I do not foresee any major problem with that. And I think this is a tremendous idea, not only because of the security, but also because people will be able to meet each other. Because what happens at the moment is someone gets our shared cockpit enabled software, they don't know where and who they can fly the shared cockpit with. So there must be something that tells them, okay, this is the website, and there's people who want to fly shared cockpit, and this is which probably has a profile which says a few words about the experience. Because if someone wants to fly real world operation, they would prefer fly with someone who already have experience. And so, yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise, it will be disappointed for both sides. That's actually been a bit of an issue, because someone just wants to jump in and do some fun, and someone else wants to do a real world operation and a payless and the emergency checklist.
Yes.
So it is definitely a big difference. But generally, yes, I think this is a meeting place for people who want to fly shared cockpit. Would be amazing, because we don't have any. And there have been several ideas to do one also with us. and but it didn't go far behind a particular far beyond just a dedicated forum. That was it. But this is this will be an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
That will be an amazing thing to do. It's a question to Matthias. Is would that I understand that would include a voice channel as well? Would it?
No, we discussed that long and hard. In the end, we decided not to include a voice client in the software, because most people have got their own preferred voice client. With Discord and some of the other things, you will just see on the website where you can jump to other people's cockpit a link to the Discord server that they're using there. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel in that case.
I ask you about that because there is an idea within our team to actually add the voice capability to the add-on. So the voice data will be sent. The same data will be sent along the voice channel.
Yeah, like I said, we have discussed it long and hard, but still, you're not going to invent it on your own. You're going to use technology that is already common, and Discord seems to be more or less the preferred way to go for most people. So,
and because can you give me like this? Yeah, sure, go ahead. How is it? Discord.
Discord, yeah.
Discord. If you can give me a link, it would be nice.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm not familiar with it.
Actually, Alexei, yeah, OVPA runs a Discord server. We've got some people sitting on there right now that are ready to ask some questions of you guys. You guys have a few minutes to take some questions?
Seriously, if I could just add a few words before we do it, because we might not be able to bring it up. Regarding the safety, there's a message. Judging from the support messages, support requests we are receiving, and the forum messages, a significant number of people still trying to use a tunneling software to tunnel the traffic between the computers to enable them to fly shared cockpit. I would again explicitly advise against doing that, because as much as there is always a security risk, security risk is much bigger if you tunnel your entire traffic from one computer to another with a software like Hitachi.
That's right.
And that should not be done. That should not be done. If you do it the regular way, with the dedicated few hundred ports, then most likely there's no much security risk, because this port is not known by any other software. But if you do it by Hitachi, you immediately introduce a huge risk to all the connected computers.
That's so true, and you know, I wrote about that. Hamachi is one of about
Hamachi.
Yeah, it's about one of 6 or 7 different tunneling tools that some people use for to connect to shared cockpit. Look, port forwarding is not difficult. In fact, this is very easy. There's a website called portforward.com. It's got every router ever made on there. Gives you step-by-step procedures, and even then, it's not difficult. Even without procedures, just the user manual for your router.
That's right. And if you don't use the 3-person configuration with our software, you don't need to set port forward.
Yeah.
You could. It is sufficient that you set port trigger, and the port trigger will trigger your forward at the time of your flight, but it will be released after you finish the flight. So there is even less security risk when you do that.
That's right.
You just need to use the same port for send and receive on both computers. This can be done. This will work, and you simply set a port trigger for that particular port, and that's it.
Yeah, and
this is much easier to do, and this is advised if you don't need the observer flight.
And by the way, you can read more about this in the shared cockpit guide that I wrote. Again, it's available in the AvSim shared cockpit forums and on the Aerosoft connected flight deck forums. I actually wrote 4 or 5 guides that are up there. They address different issues flying shared cockpit, everything from your setup and computer security, where to go to get to help for how to do port forwarding on your router, all the way through your weather settings, because those are important, and setting up communications for a shared cockpit or connected flight deck flight. All of this is very important, and always happy to do anything I can to help people with getting shared cockpit done right. So with that, I think what I'm going to do is go and grab the first question, and hopefully this will work. This is a guy who's got a question he wants to ask voice, so there'll be a little bit of an echo that we can't get rid of, but let's see if it works here. Oh, Eric, are you there? Hello, Eric.
He's sorry, Dave. He's still muted. I'll unmute him for you.
Eric, are you there, buddy? Yeah, Eric. Okay, I'm going to take the next guy. Hey, Chris, can you hear me? I'm going to put him down in the meeting room. I think that's what the problem is. 1 second.
Sorry, David. Eric's actually just come back.
Oh.
He was actually just... There you go. He's working now.
Eric, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, Eric. Do you have a question for one of our guys?
Yeah, for the arrows, I was wondering the new connected flight deck, will that be included?
Okay. Were you able to hear him, Matthias?
No, sorry, nothing.
Okay. Wow. That worked the other day too.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, to answer Eric's question, yes, connected flight deck will be an integral part of the Aerosoft Airbus. It comes with it. You don't have to, there's no separate purchase required. Thanks for your question, Eric.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let me go to our next question here. Hey, Chris, can you hear me? Chris, hold on for a second. For some reason, we're not able to unmute you, buddy. Let me drag you down to the meeting room.
I can get it for you, Dave, if you want.
No, that's okay. Okay, Chris, oh, hold on. Not able to unmute this guy. Try it, Grant, but I can't get it. And I mean, nobody's got higher level than I do, so.
Has he muted himself?
Yeah, I think they are. Chris, can you hear me? I think you're muted, buddy. I don't know why. Mark, looks like Mark is muting everybody here. Hey, Mark, can you go and unmute everybody?
Yeah.
He's gone through and muted everybody, which is okay, I guess, but.
I can unmute everybody else. I just can't do this Chris Johnson.
Well, if somebody can hear him, you can forward the question.
Well, no, we can't hear. Yeah, we can't even hear them talking. Mark has muted everybody, and let me try Paul here. Hey, Paul, can you hear me? Oh, Paulus. Paulus, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You have a question for one of our folks?
Question for Majestic.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Paulus. Yes, Dave, I hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, that'll be fine.
Thanks.
Majestic.
Things going double. Okay, for Majestic. I recently bought the
Yes, Dave, I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, just turn the volume down on your stream. That way you won't hear it twice.
Yeah, but we can't hear him.
I
I understand. With
Okay.
Okay, for Majestic. I recently bought the Okay.
Yeah, just turn the volume down on your stream. That way you won't.
We can't hear him.
I understand. With
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
I understand. Okay. You hear me now?
Okay, Paulus is having
Okay.
some
I bought recently the Dash Q400. I use a Logitech Force 3D Pro joystick. Whenever I
he needs to turn his. He's watching the
Logitech
stream.
Force 3D Pro joystick. Whenever I
Guys, really have to not watch your, listen to your stream when.
This
you're
is very
talking.
confusing because I hear my stream, the stream come back.
Yeah, you really have to turn the volume down on the stream that you're watching, otherwise you get the feedback like that. Well, this is funny, but policy.
Okay,
if
I
you,
will put the voice on.
yeah, I tell you what. If you'll submit your question in text, then we'll get it out on the air. Okay?
Yeah, I do it in text.
Thank you so much. This is funny. All right, that's too bad. Hey, Mark, I still have one guy down there, Chris Johnson, muted. Can you unmute him?
Yeah, I'll try.
Mark, I still have one guy down there, Chris Johnson, muted. Okay, something really weird happened. Well, guys,
Yeah, I'll try.
I don't know why.
Yeah, Dave, I'm showing him not muted.
Oh, you know what it is? Mark is. All right, let me just get rid of Mark here because that is what the problem is.
Yeah, Dave, I'm showing him not muted.
Guys, we do apologize for that. Mark was on Vox instead of push to talk, and so the feedback everybody was hearing was actually coming from Mark. Best laid plans of mice and men, I'm afraid. So listen, what we're going to do is we're going to reschedule the web conference. We sure are having a great time flying the Dash 8 training version, and a tremendous time flying the Aerosoft A318 and A330. In fact, later today, Grant and I are going to do a connected flight deck flight in the A330. And we're going to be streaming that. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you'll be able to at least see it there. And then,
But Dave, keep
Yeah.
in mind that that's the
Old.
version 1 of the connected
That's
flight.
right.
Okay, that's not our new system.
that's right. I was just going to say that. In fact, it is the
Ah,
old
okay, good.
the
Sorry.
old connected flight deck. But you'll be able to get a look at the A330. I want to say something about the Dash 8. We hear a lot of things coming from people who think they know what something is, and certainly they don't mean to mislead anybody. But we hear a lot of talk about external flight models, and I just want to say that the Majestic Dash 8, to the best of my knowledge, is the only aircraft in all of Flight Sim that uses an external flight model. And because of that, we have a smaller aircraft that needs and does handle like a real aircraft. I don't think you can tell the difference too much with a big aircraft, 737 and bigger, if an external flight model isn't used. But with a turboprop, I believe you certainly can. And the Dash 8 handles like the aircraft that I've flown, and I think Grant would agree with that. Grant is a current commercial pilot. Grant, are you there?
Yes, sir. No, that's definitely true. With the external flight model on the Dash, we do see a few people saying like they do find it's not handling them like they expected it to. But what we remind people of is that inside of the flight simulators is that the aircraft models aren't fully true to aerodynamical form. Now the Dash 8 takes this a bit further with the external flight model, but again, as Dave mentioned, with it being a bit smaller, weights obviously play a bigger part in this aircraft, so that's your passenger loads which you're putting through the control panel, and your cargo and fuel. Even icing takes a bigger hit on this aircraft as well, which is a great feature to see. So you will definitely notice that it's different from anything you've flown before.
Yeah.
But that's what it's designed to do, and that is how it is in real life. I've read a lot on the Dash 8, how it handles, how it flies, and with aircraft I've flown throughout my career as well. I can tell you now, you take a small aircraft like from another developer, single engine or twin engine props, things like that. Those who have any flight experience will know that they don't really handle like the real thing anyway, because they can only do so much within a simulator system. with Majestic taking it a step further, it has definitely broken the box on that, which is fantastic. So you've got to remember that this is designed differently to other aircraft. As I've said, I'll probably repeat myself here a bit, but that's the reason we love the aircraft, is because it's been designed in such a way where it takes us to another level.
Yeah, it sure does.
And that's what you're paying for with that aircraft, is that experience to get that feeling of an aircraft in a more realistic situation.
Yep. Well, speaking of another level, I want to wrap this up by talking about what's next in the flight sim world. Not what product, but where is flight simulation going? And
just a second, Dave, may I add just one remark to that?
Yeah, certainly.
It's a practical thing because based on what we just said, it does handle differently, and people start complaining that it doesn't handle like an aircraft.
Yeah.
What happens exactly for this reason? Just a suggestion: check the flying guides we have on our website, because they're written by the real-world pilots. There's a lot of experience on this aircraft, especially has to do with approach and landing and the way propeller physics works. So it must be done, otherwise you will crash on every lane. If you're not familiar with this aircraft and you're not familiar with the real aircraft, then it's quite likely that you wouldn't be able to land safely. So check the resources section. There's some landing guides. They're not long, but they include exactly the information which is necessary for this aircraft, which is also in real life. It's very different from jet aircraft in the way it handles, and even the attitude, which is negative instead of positive on approach. So it is quite important to read that and then just follow the suggestions, and you'll be able to be safe on the ground.
That's right. I mean, we want people to enjoy these products, right? Alexei and Matthias. I mean, these products are not put out there for them to struggle with. I know that Aerosoft puts out some good guides, and then of course the Aerosoft forums are just full of fantastic information, not just from experienced flight simmers, but from real-world pilots as well. And so that's one thing I see on the Aerosoft forums is real-world pilots jumping in and helping people, and it's always great to see. So
sorry, Nick. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Grant.
So I've just seen one question in the chat down here, and it is a question I've seen a lot, and it's basically asking if doing these simulators will help you to go for your commercial license. For those who have a heart for flying, this is one message that I tell everybody. You've got 3 different levels going for your commercial license. You've got your private pilot's license, your instrument license, and your commercial license. Now, for the PPL side of things, honestly, the flight simulator won't do you much good. The best thing you can do if you're interested in going for your commercial license is practicing instrument flight rules. So that's tracking VORs, inbound, outbound courses and radials, things like that. But don't get set too deep on a simulator for if you're interested in going for a commercial license straight away, because you're going to pick up habits that you don't want. And that's advice that I try and pass over to everybody. Now, don't get me wrong, when you've got a few things down when you start your IFR training, it's brilliant for doing practice in that regard. But
I'm just going to quickly add to that and move on. One of the things that we lack in, and it's actually going to be a good segue into what the next thing. One of the things that makes it difficult to transfer your experience in any flight simulator, for that matter, into an actual aircraft is the physics, the spatial familiarity that you have with what is where, and the actual feeling that you get from sitting in either a cockpit or a flight deck. And so you can have a simulator and have everything in exactly the right place, and you go to the real aircraft and you can still be disoriented. And that's, I agree with Grant. Knowledge-wise, learning the IFR end of things, I think it's fantastic, especially even practicing those things. But that's all it is. And so, yeah, it's good. Certainly, nothing hurts. But it's only going to take you so far, and you need to you need the formal training.
Dave.
Yes, sir.
I think one of the issues that every developer of an aircraft faces is that the customer has an idea of how the aircraft actually should fly.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
got the idea in his mind, and to be perfectly honest, that is not always how the aircraft behaves in the real world. So we are often faced with the fact that we have to tune the aircraft to the expectations of the customers. It is quite a long time ago, but a very nice example of that is the F-16 that we did. We had it, the roll rate was absolutely spot on to the microsecond or something. It was perfectly done, but there was no pilot who could actually fly, no sim pilot who could actually fly the aircraft, because if they would even sneeze, they would have done three complete rolls.
Yep.
So we had to. And people said that is not real. The real F-16 doesn't fly like that. And we knew that it did fly like that. So we had to adapt what we sold to the expectations of the customer.
Yep.
You see exactly the same thing in sound quite often. The sound that our customers want is the sound that they recognize from the cockpit. Not
from the cabin,
flight deck.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then in the if you do decide in the flight deck, they say, well, I can't even hear it. I said no, but most pilots fly with a noise reduction headphone on, and
Sure.
you don't hear the engines.
Right.
In that case.
Sure.
So again, we have to adapt to what the customer expects. In an A330, you do not hear the flaps on the flight deck. You simply don't hear them. But customers still expect the flaps to be heard on the flight deck.
Sure.
Alexi caters for a slightly more advanced customer than we do, so he probably will have to face a little bit less of that whole issue, but it's still something that we face every single day.
Yeah.
We can do something realistic, or we can do something how the customer thinks is realistic, and there's a balance there that's hard to find, and that's why we often can do better than what we sell. We can do more realistic than that we sell.
That's right.
Yeah, it is unfortunately so. And may I say, although we target slightly different range of customers, as Matthias says, there's one thing that should not be missed in addition to the grants comment. The flight simmer add-ons are a fantastic tool for the system familiarization of the aircraft, especially those which come closer to the real cockpit. And even most of the add-ons can be used for this. And I tell you from experience, although for the real life I'm on the PPLA, but from the feedback of the professional customers, we have airlines and professional customers and pilots, they've used a lot of the add-on as a system familiarization. So when they get into the cockpit, although of course you could get lost because the things are not on your screen, they are in different positions around you, but they much better in getting accustomed to the real cockpit than people who didn't use the add-on.
Yeah.
And we have hundreds of feedback, like positive feedback, that when you do it in a simulator, you already know what to expect from a certain system, and it's not exactly the same, but it's quite accurate. And for the real world training, it helps a lot in the system familiarization. And when we add the shared cockpit to it, when you actually do multi-crew coordination, you can train most of the things you can do in the multi-crew coordination in the shared cockpit, including the emergency procedures.
Yeah.
And it is a tremendous help, and it will reduce your time to get accustomed with the real aircraft a lot.
Yeah, Yeah, they're good,
In
good for
the
procedural trainers. We see over here on this side of the pond, we see our military has moved to using computer-based flight simulator or desktop flight simulators as procedural trainers, because it's a huge cost savings. So yeah, I couldn't agree more, Alexei, in that regard.
It is. We will see a lot more of that in the next 2 years. The current cost of a level D Airbus sim is around between $6,000 and $10,000 an hour
Yeah.
to have it completely running. So what the flight schools really want is to spend is to only allow their partners in the bigger expensive flight sims after they learned an awful lot. That's what we see in our professional products, that VR is becoming really important. They don't want their partners to do checklist training in a level D sim because it's too expensive. So you can easily do that in a much more simple VR sim. If you have two partners there, it's even better. But even if you do it in a single pilot, it still works well. And you will see that in the next 2 years, more and more often, the lower end of the pilot training is coming towards prepared. It's coming there fast.
The issue here is really having a training syllabus for a particular simulator. Exactly. Each simulator has its own limits. Even the FNPT flight procedure trainer and FTDs, they have their training syllabus which must be approved by the operator. And in this training syllabus, only these things which simulator can do are included, because that excludes. That diminishes the issue of having negative training when you train something that is different on a sim than the real plane. So, of course, when you start do all the things that simulator seem to be able to do, you will end up with this problem, having trained something that will not work on the plane the same way on the sim. So having instructions for the particular simulator is something that increases this effect of preparation. That's on a note. And these instructions can be this can be compiled actually if you follow, for example, one of the sample flight we have on the resources section website. It will not include these things which do work the same on the real plane and simulator.
Hey, and speaking, and now we're kind of looking at more real world application and what's going to be happening in the future. And I just want to ask, virtual reality. I know that Grant just recently took a step into that pool, and he's amazed by it in flight sim. And Alexei, you and I have talked a great deal about VR, and I've never talked with Matthias about it. But I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on virtual reality and flight sim. Start with Matthias, if we can.
At this moment, the resolution of headsets that you can afford is simply not good enough to do something very serious. We need an HD resolution per eye under $500, and then it will take off as like lightning. It is where we will end up with all our sims.
Mm-hmm. Alexei?
I agree precisely. Because of the customer request, I had to order the virtual reality helmets. Now I have a second generation of it, which is the Oculus CV1. And I must say, already now flying simple planes like Cessna Piper 28, Cessna 172, 152 is fantastic with the virtual reality. And not only because you can see everything around you, but also because of the stereoscopic perspective. You can actually land the plane without looking at your instruments like in the real life, and it's so much easier than flying it on the in the display. Although the resolution is certainly lower, that if the plane is less demanding, and you don't even look at the airspeed because you instantly feel it by the attitude, like you do in the real life.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure if you can land with the virtual reality and the flight dynamic is good, I think that brings you one step closer in landing even a small plane in the real life, although Grant might not agree with me. But I would not agree with myself either before I tried virtual reality. But I was instantly feeling like I'm flying for more a real plane than a plane simulator.
Wow.
Although it was a simple model it was a commercial model. I don't remember who's come from. It was Piper 28, but it's still a default flight dynamics. And on the ground, it did not behave that as an airplane does. But in the approach and landing, I had a feeling that I actually fly in a plane. And I didn't even need to see the instruments. I was feeling like, I had a feeling for airspeed, for my attitude. It was quite amazing. It's a big step forward. And with the technology to actually touch things in a cockpit where it's VR Insight, I think it's called, the add-on which does that. You could bring it to the level you don't even need a keyboard with that. It's a future of simulation, like Matthias said. Totally agree with that.
Sure.
And I think in 3 years' time, 2, 3, maybe even 2 years' time, we will see the resolution on the virtual reality will be sufficient enough to fly the airliner like it should.
Sure.
And it will change a lot. It will change a lot of things.
Yep.
Precisely.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Grant, any questions for the guys? Your mic is muted again.
Sorry about that. I'm just trying to feed in a couple of questions now. If you can give me 2 seconds, and I'll see what I can get done.
All right.
Alexi, what's that large monitor behind you?
Oh, that's a flying station. It's where I test the Dash 8 most of the time. We fly shared cockpit and let's see. It's
That's right.
actually a curved
right.
screen. It's got a slight curve in it. So
4K, okay. Yeah.
Yes, it's 4K.
Hey,
You had to show it off, eh?
Yeah, it's a show off really. This time it has a pedal, so you see the
Hey,
pedals. It's like controls.
mine's bigger. Mine's bigger.
The size matters, right?
Hey, while Grant's digging up a question here, I want to say something. Usually do it toward the end of the broadcast, but it doesn't have to do with really shared cockpit. We get a lot of people writing to OVPA, either via Facebook or our email address. After one of our web conferences, and they're interested in joining OVPA, and I just wanted to say that we're not named very well because the name is just stuck for over the years, Online Virtual Pilots Association, but so it's deceiving. We're actually a private group of close friends. Now people can't apply to join, but we're just really kind of a private group. You can't just sign up on a website and become a member of OVPA. If anybody is really seriously interested in that, we actually do a Skype call with them and talk to them, and we kind of make sure that we're right for them and that they're right for us. And we're not elite by any measure, and I hate elitism. I really do. I don't think it belongs in flight simulation. I don't think it belongs in the world. But we are just we're all very good friends, and we're certainly willing to make new friends. No question about it. We have a few minimum standards, like you have to be at least 24 years of age, and be a good person who likes to work with other people, enjoys associating with other people, because frankly in flight sim we find most people are just the opposite. Not that they're not good people, but their flight sim experience is just them and their computer, and they're not really looking to expand on that. But if you're a different kind of person and you'd be in maybe the 1 percentile of flight simmers, and you are interested, then shoot us an email or give us a contact on one of our Facebook page or YouTube, and we'll get a hold of you and be happy to do that. But so not elite in any way, shape, or form, just some really good people who become friends and really enjoy exploring flight sim together. we do work with a lot of different developers at OVPA, and I don't want anybody to think they're going to join and go work with developers, because it's not how it works. So, because we get those kind of people too. So anyway, Grant, did you get any questions?
Yeah, we've had one just come through. It's from Eric Mensch, and he's just basically asking for Matthias. The new connected flight deck, is it going to be exclusively for P3D, or will it support FSX, P3D, and other platforms as well?
Good question.
Plan at this moment is to keep it completely transparent between all the platforms. And so far we've managed to keep that going. You can have an FSX pilot fly with a prepared 3D version for first officer.
Wow.
That's the plan, okay?
Okay. Oh, Lexi, that's a good question about the Dash 8 as well.
Regarding, oh yes, I would agree with that, because what Matthias says, it's not a flight sim platform question, it's an add-on. It's an add-on platform question. Even if the add-on uses allows share cockpit between different flight sim platforms, then this server would allow it as well. There's nothing to do with flight sim platform. It's only depend on how the add-on itself is built.
So would a 32-bit FSX Dash 8 Pro work with a 64-bit Dash 8 Pro?
Yes, they would. It's just that it has to be of the same version of the Dash 8. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if the version we have 1.018 Pro, which we have 32-bit, it wouldn't work with 1.020, which is 64. But we will release a patch shortly for the 32-bit. Then they will be able to connect. As long as the only consideration is the add-ons is for the scenery which you use for the airports where you want to operate, because that should have the same elevation, same runway positions. This is the only concern, but this could be a concern even in the same flight simulator platform. So if one is using one add-on and another side doesn't use any add-on or different, you may end up with one of the aircraft hanging in the air and not being visually on the runway. So, but this can, yes.
No, I was going to say, speaking of that, you know, the Mad Dog, after landing, it does a digital flight guidance computer restart, a DFGC restart. And it happens 1 or 2 minutes on the nose right after touchdown. And the reason, the way the aircraft knows that it has touched down is because of the G-forces that it felt. So when we first started flying the Mad Dog in shared cockpit, one person would have a slightly different scenery than the other person would, and he'd get run off the end of the taxiway, and the digital flight guidance computer would sense that G-force and do a restart, which dumps the FMS. You know, everything just goes away, and it made doing shared cockpit next to impossible. So we spent I don't know, I shouldn't say we, I spent an incredible amount of hours building a freeware scenery group scenery library, so that anytime people wanted to fly shared cockpit, they could just grab the scenery and they'd know they'd have the same scenery and go, or they'd have to have the same payware scenery. But thankfully we don't have that problem anymore with the Dash 8 or the Airbus. So but that's that made having the right scenery really important.
It is important to have the same scenery if you do any shared cockpit with any add-on. Otherwise, you will have issues. The ILS will not be there. The glide slope will be different.
That's right.
And your equipment will be synchronized because of that, and your experience will be spoiled. So it's better to spend a few minutes, make sure you have the same. Go to the runway, make sure you're on the same location, same altitude, same elevation. This also matters. Even if your taxiway is a bit off, it wouldn't spoil your game entirely. But if your runway is off and your ILS, then you will have a real problem.
Sure. And by the way,
we don't even talk about the same weather.
That's right. I have a confession. I actually kind of skirted that topic today, but we might as well bring that up about shared cockpit. Alexei, I know that the Dash 8 is unique in this regard, but for the majority of shared cockpit aircraft, the users really must have the same weather. So actually, before we talk about why the Dash is unique and how you were able to do what you did, Matthias, you want to talk a little bit about the weather in shared cockpit?
No.
Oh, you
Why?
don't? Okay.
No,
Well,
it is.
First, there's the immersion factor to begin with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I would tell you, Grant and I are able to maintain about 90% accuracy, even in cloud formations using active sky. And we've got our weather down to 1 or 2 degrees and 1 or 2 knots. And only because Grant's weather updates at a slightly different. He's in Great Britain. I'm in Florida in the U.S. And so his weather updates a little differently than mine does. But if you can keep within a couple of degrees and a couple of knots on your wind, then generally speaking, it won't impact your flight. We've worked very hard over the years to make sure, to get even our cloud formations to where they're sometimes exactly the same. And you just have to make sure that you have the same weather engine, same textures installed, they have to be exact, and that you have basically what we do is we share the INI file, so we know that we have the exact same weather engine settings, we have the exact same textures installed, and that really helps. But beyond the immersion factor, if you've got one person that has got the winds, say coming out of the north at 20 knots, and you have another person that has the winds coming out of the east at 40 knots, it's going to affect the aircraft. If the autopilot's on, or even if it's not, you're going to have to change your heading of your aircraft to maintain a straight course. And well, if the other guy has different winds and you change the heading of the aircraft, his aircraft is going to go somewhere else, because that's what shared cockpit really is. It's two people with two different aircraft that, by virtue of the network connection between them, are being influenced by one person at a time, but they're still two separate aircraft. So if one aircraft is kind of going off this direction, the other aircraft is kind of going off that direction, well, eventually you're going to
no,
have some issues.
No, that is not how our system works. I believe every second and a half, the positions of the two aircraft are synced.
Right, but what happens with the Airbus, the way it is right now, is let me get my camera right. Is one aircraft will still go off in a different direction, but what happens is a position update is sent and it brings it back. And what happens when this gets to be out of control, like I say on a 1 or 2 hour flight, is you will start to see shuddering. What it looks like, so it's stuttering. It looks like it's lag, but it's stuttering as the aircraft goes to the position it believes it's at, and then the master updates that position, and so it goes back and forth. And if you really want to see it, look external, because externally...
No, just true. Our server tries to detect that. It detects if the two positions of the aircraft are not the same, and if it is, it will try to update the positions of the aircraft faster, more often, I should say.
Oh, okay, that's great. No, it's wonderful. Alexei and I worked so much with this over the years with the Dash 8 to get it fine-tuned. So we had some experiences. How'd you beat it, Alexei? Or if you don't want to say, that's fine too. But
well, it's the way we beat. I would say beat it. We were tricked it.
No, honestly, on my PC, on my computer here, it's still telling me live stream offline.
Yeah, it's same here. I show live stream offline.
It's on it's on in the US, so.
Okay, it's online though.
No, it's back on.
It's back now.
Yeah, so we never lost it here in the US. Anyway,
let's take another question.
Sure.
I've got only one more question at the moment. It's from I think I pronounce this Adrian. Again, this is for you, Mathis. He wants to know if there's going to be any extra cost for the server in terms of doing the shared cockpit now.
Nope, completely free.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's OVPA, we are very blessed that we can show beta products from different developers on our live streams while they're in development, and we've been doing that for a very long time. My goodness, we streamed the Majestic Dash 8 for I think 6 years or 6.5 years before it was released, and so we're always very careful what we say and what we talk about and what we show, and to make sure people understand it's a beta. It's got things that are wrong with it. What you're seeing is not, it's just to give you a rough idea of what the product is going to be like. But kind of forgot where I was going there. I guess that happens. Well, anyway. I did actually forget where I was going with that.
Yep. May I just continue? If you remember, just interrupt me and we will continue with your idea. Regarding the weather synchronization, where we stopped. Well, this is most. I don't know when we lost the connection to the stream, but the most important parameters are the pressure, temperature, and the winds. And if these are synchronized, then you wouldn't have any major issues in your flying experience. And this is easier to do in a Dash 8 because of the external flight dynamics, but we just overwrite the data from the sim and we use our data from the master computer, which is flying. But I think it is also could be possible even if the default flight dynamics engine is used, like in Matthias Airbus. So this could be something, because if you update the position anyway, and if you start updating it faster, then you might get to the point where the wind don't matter. And if you do that, then you can show a different information on your MFD on the screens than actually the sim provides you. You might be able to show the same information for two computers, synchronize it. And in this way, the user will have an illusion that the weather is exactly the same.
Yes.
Although his sim will think otherwise, but it wouldn't matter in this case.
Right.
Just a matter of updating your position fast enough that the team doesn't have enough time to apply the wrong weather on one of the sets.
Sure. Hey, listen, I remembered where I was going. I'm sorry about that. But Grant and I've had 4 surgeries this year, and 2 of them were somewhat minor. The other 2 were major surgeries on my shoulder, and I had one about 3.5 weeks ago, and this one did not go well at all. And about 2 weeks ago, I was not able to sleep for about 6 days. I got maybe 3 hours sleep a night and about 30 minutes out of whack. So no REM sleep happening for like 6 days, and it was really, really terrible. And Grant and I were still flying online, but anyway, it was really something. Then Grant, being the team player that he is, went and tore his rotator cuff just to be a team player. So now he's going through what I'm still going through. But we do stream beta products, and people ask us what we think about different products. Let me say something. The reason that you guys keep seeing Alexei and Matthias here on the stream is they have new products, but is because these two. I mean, there's a lot of developers out there I respect, and there's a lot of products out there I think are great, but these 2 guys really are the kind of developers we need in flight sim. They're flight simmers themselves. Their heart is in it. They care about their products. They care about what we think about their products, and they really treat their customers fairly. We can't always do the things that we'd like to do for customers, because we'd be out of business if we did it. But they treat their customers fairly, and both these gentlemen are as honest as they come. And I want to put that out there, because I mean, let's face it, we read things out there in other forums and other flight sim websites, and it's not always flattering. And I can promise you that these 2 guys are the people that I want to associate with, and I'm grateful that they become friends of mine. I respect both of them at the highest level, and I'm very proud to be associated with them in the work that we do, and I trust them. I really do.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, we are absolutely grateful for everything that all the effort you put in helping us, and especially in the shared cockpit and in general in testing and with the other things. And it was amazing to work with you all the years.
Thank you, Alexei. I love working with you too, brother. I really do. Unless our guests have anything else that they would like to say, then I think we're going to close this down, and we'll be back soon. We have everything ready. We just need to get that doggone synchronized server working. And
I do have something to say, but I'll leave it for the time when we have video, because
Part
that
two?
will be more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Matthias, you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope.
You got your wine?
I've got wine.
All right. Too early on this side of the pond for me to join you, brother. But
Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
yeah, it's always true. Yeah. So with that, guys, we're going to close it down. Thank you so much for taking the time to view the broadcast, and really for spending your time with the four of us. We value.
Thank you,
your
Dave.
time. You know, we really do.
Anytime, Dave.
Yeah, you bet. So, okay, so we're going to shut her down, and we'll let you guys know, everybody out there, we'll let you guys know when we're going to do part 2 and show you this video. We're not going to, we're going to try our best to make it very, very soon. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to watch. Take care. High five, you guys.
See you later.
All right, that's my man.
Just have to make sure I didn't do with the batch order then.
We're not shut down yet, so be cool. I'm trying to get her. There it goes.